Hey y'all, so I want to get on here and share a little story time right quick, okay? So God supernaturally opened up a door for me to buy my first home. I made a post on my Instagram. This was in June of 2020. I just given birth to my daughter in February of 2020. I had a townhome. The lease was up in June, so I had got approved for these brand new apartments that was about to be built, that were getting built, that were going to be done in July of 2020. Okay, with me, okay. So I was like, all right, well, I got to get out my apartment by June. The apartments that's being built will be done by July. I asked my sister if me and my son and my daughter could just live with her for a month until the apartments were done. Okay. So she was like, yes, that's fine. We moved in with her. July rolls around 2020. Apartments are not done. So I'm like, okay, they're not done. Let me just wait. Okay. Mind you, before I had said that I was going to the apartment, I said, I want to stay in this apartment at least a minimum of 1 or 2 years because I wanted to buy a house. I was like, I know I want to buy a house, but I'm going to give myself at least 2 years to save my money, get my credit right, so I can go ahead and buy the house. July 2020 rolls around. The apartments are not done. They pushed it to August. So mind you, this was the same cycle. August came, they weren't done. They pushed it to September. So they kept giving me this runaround, the builder, this, that. Mind you, I already paid my deposit. I already knew my apartment number. I already had my address, already had everything set up, okay? Everything was set up. I was just waiting for the apartment to get done so I could move in, okay? It was done. It was finalized. So throughout that time, I was on YouTube doing a lot of research with credit, the loan I was wanting to use for my home. I'm a veteran. So I knew I was going to be able to use my VA home loan. So I was just trying to gain so much knowledge of what the process would be. So I'm on YouTube. I was looking at this particular lender that I always would watch her YouTube videos. She's very knowledgeable with VA loans. And it was a random day I was watching her video. She was talking about the credit score and stuff. And I just was like, I'm going to apply. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Mind you, when I applied for my home, I was not in the best financial situation. I did not have money saved. I just was like, well, let me see. I was like, you know what? I'm about to apply. Like, what's the worst that can happen? If they tell me no, listen, I still got my apartment that they gave me my approval for my apartment. So I'm just like, what is the worst that can happen? I applied. I got the denial that, it was some things on my credit. But I was like, okay, I wasn't planning on it anyway. So I wound up talking to a referral of a credit person that they work with to just give me some points and what I could possibly do to increase my score. So I talked to him. Mind you, all of this is in August of 2020. I talked to him and he's like, your credit is not that bad. If you pay off X, Y, and Z, keep this here, you should be good. So I ended up coming on some money that was not expected, but I wound up coming on some money, okay? I want y'all to hear all the unexpected ways God made this work. So I wound up coming on some money, paid off that. Mind you, I still had the apartment that they kept pushing off because I didn't want to say no to that because I didn't know. I'm just like, we just about to see. We just going off of straight faith. Right? I paid off what I had to pay off and I talked to the lender again. She was like, okay, let me rerun the numbers. Y'all, she reran the numbers and I got my pre-approval. Mind you, this whole time I wasn't really expecting a pre-approval or buying a house because it wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't part of my plan, but it was a setup. Okay, it was God's setup for my life. It was God's setup. Like, you thought you was about to get this townhome. I got something bigger for you. Okay. Hold on. I get excited telling the story. So I get the pre-approval and I'm like, well, wait, I don't have a realtor. I don't know how this process works. I don't know anything. So in 2018, I tried to buy a house and I got denied. I got shut down. They told me no, your credit, income, job. It was a complete denial. But I remember that realtor I had in 2018. So I called her and I was like, hey, I got a pre-approval. I know this is all last minute. Can you be my realtor? Of course, she didn't turn it down. So we started looking at homes and all that. And just to fast forward the story, this was in October. So October rolled around. I saw this townhome where I was living, but I was like, I really don't want a townhome. Like, I want something. I want like a house. I don't want a townhome. And my approval wasn't in the range outside of the townhomes of where I was currently living. So I was like, if I gotta move a little distance, I don't mind. I'll move. So I wound up looking at some homes where I live now, and it was a new build, a new community. Like they still breaking the ground, right? They making a whole community. It was a big old field that they turned into a community. And I look at the homes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this house is beautiful. And they was like, well, we do have another home in your price range, but this was in October, but it will not be done until January of 2020. Can you wait? Is that okay? So of course I had to ask my sister, and I was like, I can do that. Like, can I put my offer in? Y'all, I put my offer in. My realtor called me that night and she said they have accepted your offer and they're going to pay about $5,000 of your closing costs. I'm trying to tell y'all, when I say God was in it from the beginning into the entire process. So not only did they pay my closing costs, I had one of the best interest rates because it was in the peak of COVID when the interest rates were so low. So I got locked in, guaranteed, like my rate could never increase. My interest rate was at a super low. They paid my closing costs. My out of pocket was barely slim to none. And by the grace of God, I was able to move in my first home in January of 2021. Like, you can't tell me God isn't good. And I asked God, like when I first got that pre-approval, I said, Lord, if this is not the time and if this is not going to go through, can you just stop everything now? Can you just stop? Because I didn't want to be disappointed how I was in 2018. But God was like, no, this is going to go through. And not only is it going to go through, it's going to be even bigger than you could have ever imagined. I was waiting for an apartment, y'all. I was waiting for the apartments to get built, my 2-bedroom apartment that my son and my daughter was going to share a room. I was waiting for that apartment. But God said no, because he has heard my cry. And I believe that was an answer to my obedience. What I had went through prior with my daughter. What I had went through when I wanted to abort my daughter because I was in such a hard place mentally. I did not see how my life was going to change with 2 children. And I was going to have an abortion. I was going to have another abortion, okay? But God spoke to me and said, trust me, I got you. And in that trusting God, he said, I'm going to open up a door that only by my hand that you will be able to say, only God could have done this. Only God could have moved with speed, y'all. I was with my sister in July. I moved into my new home in January. I didn't do any pre-preparation. I didn't save. I didn't do all the things they say to do to buy a house. And I'm not saying that's good. That's great. Still do those things. But God did it different with me. I surpassed all the pre-qualifications. I surpassed all the things that it looks to man that I had to do. But with God, he will open up a door. He will open up a door. So I just want to encourage you that are believing God for the promise, the home, the car, the marriage, the children, the ministry, the business, whatever you are believing God for, trust him in that, okay? Trust him and know that what he said he will do, and he will perform it speedily with ease. God opened a door that I wasn't even ready for, right? That I wasn't even planned for. That I was like, I'm cool with the apartment. But God said, I got something better for you, daughter. So let this encourage your faith to continue to trust God. Even when people say no, God can come in and turn that thing around. So I just wanted to share this story time. I pray it blesses you. Stay encouraged with whatever God said. Stay encouraged and believe God for what he said. Love y'all. Bye.